Oh, there we go. You're back.
Hello. I made it. I'm here. Yeah. Time to start trouble.
Yeah, too much trouble. It's a depressing week, honestly, this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to overload. Like, pretty much every story is, it's more dangerous to talk in public now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, apparently it is, it's actually a good thing to kill philosophers who disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Civilian philosophers. Also, it's also cool to kill their daughter if they too disagree with you. Yeah, this is a real thing. You know, we had many blue check people on Twitter over the last week basically celebrate the assassination of Daria Dugina, which was part of an attempted assassination of Alexander Dugin, friend of this show, friend of Unregistered, former guest on Unregistered, one of the most amazing guests I've ever had, one of the most intellectually rewarding interviews I've ever done. He is, without a doubt, a brilliant and fascinating philosopher, and I think he might be the philosopher of anti-imperialism, and I think he has a lot to offer people. But even if he doesn't politically, even if you do think he's a fascist and a racist and a totalitarian and whatever else is said about him, he certainly deserves attention for his ideas, the complexity, the depth of his ideas, and the originality of them. And I think in particular, the critique of the West, of US and Western European imperialism, colonialism, and his embrace of a multipolar world, which I think is a very good thing for humanity. You know, he wants the United States to have its monopoly broken apart. He thinks there should no longer be a single hegemon ruling the world. And this seems to me to be very much in line with the professed values of much of the left. They believe in self-determination. They, at least ostensibly, are anti-colonial, anti-imperial, and they're critics of the fact, they tend to be critics, at least publicly, of the fact that the United States is the global hegemon. People complain about the United States being the superpower, and it's all the imperialism that comes with that. Dugin is the philosopher to challenge that, and he has written dozens of books on this subject, I think most of which will reward close study. Now, the thing is, no one wants to read him. No one wants to really learn what he has to say, because he is known, and this is false too, as Putin's brain, which I'm hearing more and more reports that this is grossly exaggerated. In fact, I've heard from many people who know Dugin personally that, get this, neither Alexander Dugin nor his daughter Daria have ever met Vladimir Putin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they had met him, and if in fact he was a major influence on Putin's thinking, which he probably was not, has not been, even then, do we really want to celebrate the assassination of a professor and his daughter because they supported a war? Now, the justification that people will have for this is, well, he has supported this war of conquest, which has resulted in the deaths of X number of civilians. True. That is true. I mean, of course, that story is far more complicated. But if that's true, if you deserve death as a philosopher, as a public intellectual for calling for a war of conquest, then, roughly half of the blue check class needs to be murdered soon because they all supported the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, the bombings of Libya, Syria, and on and on. These are supreme hypocrites who have the compassion, as I said on Twitter, of a serial killer. It's gross. Mm-hmm. And it is, but as you're saying, Michael, like I think maybe the greatest import of all here is that they are signaling that it is good to take out your intellectual opponents. I mean, we're not talking about a government official. That's a different story. You know, people in government, I think, are fair game for a lot of things because they hold power over us. And so many actions taken against them, I think, are acts of self-defense. Of course, they hold the monopoly on violence, and they control our lives in all sorts of ways, and certainly can control our lives, and they want to control our lives whether we want to or not. So that's different. Government officials, I'm not going to cry too hard if bad things happen to them. But in this case, Dugin is really no different than you or me. He's someone who thinks and writes in public ideas. And by the way, as I said, everyone, please go check out the interview that I did with him on Unregistered in January of this year, or watch Michael Millerman's work on Dugin. I tweeted about him today. There was a great interview that Max Blumenthal did with, and I'm forgetting his last name, Mark something. He's an American Svoboda. Yeah. He's an American academic in Moscow who was a colleague of Dugin at Moscow State University. And oh my God, please watch that, everyone. It's about an hour. They talk about Dugin and they correct the record. I mean, basically every single thing that has been said about Dugin in the Western media is propaganda, is false, is a lie. And about Daria too, complete lies. I mean, the big quote that's been used against her, again, to justify her killing, which is ridiculous. Even if she did say Ukrainians are subhuman, do we really want to have her taken out? 29-year-old woman who is, I mean, I was just watching an interview with her today talking about Christian feminism. This is an interview from last year. And she's just a good person with some ideas. She's an political intellectual who cares about stuff. It's not, she is in no way a totalitarian or a fascist or any of that. But yeah, please watch that interview that Max did on the Gray Zone. Came out 2 days ago, or watch the Dugin interview with me, or again, read any of Michael Millerman's work on him. He wrote the book on Dugin's philosophy. And he's talked about it quite a bit. He's talked about Dugin quite a bit in public. So there's a lot out there, and he's just fascinating. I mean, this is why I had him on the show, and this is why I was so blown away by the interview. He's just a remarkable intellect who knows more than just about anybody. And again, has these original, revolutionary, quite provocative ideas that I think need to be taken seriously if we are going to survive as a human species. And I mean that because where we are headed is toward a multipolar world that's against all the wishes of the United States and NATO, but it's happening. And unfortunately, though, we are headed for a multipolar world that could be at war. We're headed toward a world in which we are broken up into various trading blocks, which could also be military alliances, and that is forming now. We have Russia and China conducting military exercises together, trading together. India, Brazil, and South Africa, and now probably Saudi Arabia, by the way, will be joining this alliance, which is now more or less an informal alliance, but is quickly becoming a military alliance right in the middle of the globe, arrayed against the power of the United States and NATO. This is dangerous. It's a very dangerous world we're living in. And NATO and US leadership and British leadership has taken us to the brink. And I think that Dugin's philosophies are the way to bring us back, actually. I think his ideas are the way to bring us back because he is about, as I said, respecting local cultures, respecting local traditions. And when I say local, I mean just not global traditions. I mean the traditions and cultures of individual nations or regions or even cities or towns. Respect them, and don't try to impose your ideas of the universal good on them. Don't try to impose your own morality, your norms on them. Let them be. And that is where peace will come from, is leaving people alone with your military, and then ideally trading with them, which is the libertarian antidote to war, which I think is a really good one. Let's have more trade. And by the way, that's all Russia and China have ever wanted with the United States, which is what's really enraging to me. That's really enraging to me. Those countries never have wanted war with the United States, of course, because they know what it means. It would mean lots of dead people and that mass destruction. Yeah. They have wanted trade. Japan, same thing in the 1930s. They desperately wanted trade with the United States. FDR said no, 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 and made it impossible to trade, which forced them to go to war with the United States. And I'm afraid that's what's happening right now with China and Russia, and especially with China, which has an economic base that is 4 or 5, I don't know, multiple times bigger than the United States economy. They have the capacity, they have the industrial capacity to create the world's largest military, and they are on a course to do that. Do we want to continue provoking them? Do we want to continue antagonizing them by sending people like the lunatic moron Nancy Pelosi on this trip of provocation across the ocean, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah. So yeah, rest in peace, Daria Dugina, and I am condolences to Alexander and his family.
Yeah. I don't understand how just simply empathizing for somebody who died in a horrible car bomb like this is impossible for people. Hotep Jesus, whenever like there's a police killing, he always tells Republicans to just give it a few days and lead with empathy and say, I feel sorry for the family of George Floyd. It's a terrible thing that this happened. Just say that up front so people can see that you're a human being, you know? And we got comments on our videos across social media platforms saying, I'm glad this guy's dead, all this stuff, like just demons coming out of the woodwork because his daughter was killed in an assassination attempt. And again, we're only talking about ideas here.
Yeah. Rick Wilson, who is the leader of the Lincoln Project, the sort of never Trump resistance, he put out this tweet that just made my blood go cold. And I tweeted it out. I mean, he said something about like reading about the attempted assassination of Dugan and the killing of his equally egregious daughter. And then he has this picture of Peter Sellers saying, these things happen, with this excited look on his face. Oh, these things happen. This is so exciting. He was saying, this is exciting. This is exciting. And now let me, what's his name who was on Max's show? Mark?
Sleboda. It's
Sleboda with an L?
Yeah, Sleboda.
Okay, Mark Sleboda. Yes. So he was, please, everyone go watch this video.
Yeah.
It's the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal 2 days ago, Mark Sleboda. So anyway, Sleboda was arguing, and so was Max, that not arguing, he was reminding us that Ukraine has been carrying out lots of basically terrorist activities, killing Russian nationalists in various ways, bombing nuclear power plants, stuff that is of desperation. And this is because they're losing the war.
I want to ask about the nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
You're saying Ukraine is bombing that nuclear power plant?
Well, okay, so that power plant, as I understand it, is many, 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 many miles inside Ukraine-controlled territory. So inside of Russia-controlled territory. So if Russia has been bombing it, they've been bombing themselves. And they've been accused of this many times, of bombing their own territory. No one knows. I do not know. I just know that makes no sense to me, that Russia would be bombing itself and be bombing a nuclear power plant inside its own territory.
Yeah.
So, but that's happened several times where there have been attacks on Russian-controlled territory that was blamed on Russia by Ukraine. So, but they're losing. I mean, we all agree now. I mean, even the Western media over the last few weeks has been finally acknowledging that Ukraine is losing this war and will lose this war. And so we know that they have reason for desperation. And this is why they are doing things like targeted assassinations. And we don't know that they were behind the killing of Daria Dugina, but it would make sense. And also the Russian security services have identified a Ukrainian woman who they say was part of the Azov battalion as the killer. They say that they have surveillance footage of her trailing Daria, of renting an apartment in Daria's building for several weeks before the killing. And then this woman immediately fled Russia after the killing, was last seen in Estonia, then in Austria, and is no longer found. No one knows where she is. Sleboda also said that, and this is known, CIA and U.S. intelligence agencies and MI6 have been directing basically every part of the war for the Ukraine military. I mean, they've been helping them with targeting, satellite surveillance, everything, strategy, intel sharing, all that. The Ukraine military has not been able to make any major decisions on the front without getting a green light from the United States, from the CIA. So Sleboda was saying it's just highly unlikely and very weird if the CIA did not give a green light to the assassination of Daria Dugina. Mm-hmm. The fact that she has traveled across several national borders in Europe in the last the killer has traveled across several European borders in the last week without being apprehended tells me that some big government is behind that, because I think you and I couldn't cross a border in Europe without being known, without being identified. So somebody, again, either the CIA or MI6 or both, is intervening on her behalf to protect her. It has to be. This is, let me say that again. So Mark Sleboda and Max Blumenthal, who Mark Slobodka is an academic and Max Blumenthal is a journalist, I think both with excellent credentials, are making the claim with quite a bit of substantial evidence, substantiating evidence that the CIA, our government, ultimately was behind the assassination of a 29-year-old woman because she had bad ideas that were difficult, that made the mission of the United States government more difficult. This is something else. This is something else right here.
Not even that. Like Alexander Dugin was the target, and there's reason to believe that they knew that there was a last-minute switch in cars, and they went ahead with it anyways. That this collateral damage is enough to, I guess, send a message to the ruling class, to the oligarchs of Russia. Is that the idea behind it? It makes no sense. It's just, to me, it looks like completely irresponsible escalation.
Well, okay, so why would they bother to kill this philosopher and his daughter? So Daria was a fairly prominent journalist. In some ways, she was more prominent than Alexander recently. Has been on Russian television many times, and she has been a hawk, just like her dad, on the war, and did call the Azov battalion subhumans, the Azov neo-Nazis in that battalion who have committed war crimes. And again, everyone acknowledges this. And the Western media before the war started used to talk about Azov being Nazis, and now they don't anymore. But pretty much everyone agrees that they're at least semi-Nazi. So she called them subhuman. And that's why Anne has denounced them many times. I think she even came to Mariupol after the liberation of Mariupol and denounced Azov as neo-Nazi. That apparently really pissed them off. And Azov has been obsessed with her for a long time. There was also, and this is really chilling, there was also a documentary aired on Ukrainian national TV on the biggest channel in Ukraine just 2 days, I think, before the attack, which was, talking about Dugin and about how he was a threat to Ukrainian sovereignty and was essentially an enemy of the Ukrainian people. On top of that, the Ukrainian government, we think, has been putting together a website, has had a website throughout the course of the war, which lists journalists and academics and various intellectuals and even celebrities like Roger Waters who have criticized the Zelensky regime and the Ukrainian government and the conduct of the war by the West. It's a hit list. They say that these are the enemies of Ukraine. These are the enemies of the people. And by the way, there are now 3 of those. Oh, Dugin was on this list, excuse me, as was Daria.
Oh, yeah.
So now, right, both of them. So now there are 3. There were 2 people who are from that list who have been killed, who have been assassinated before Daria. So now there are 3 people on that list, on this website put out by the Ukrainian government. 3 people on that list who have been murdered, who have been assassinated. So this is, this is not looking good for Ukraine's innocence. And it's not, most importantly, not looking good for intellectual freedom in this world. It is not looking good for people who want to say controversial things in public. Salman Rushdie, gets stabbed on stage, and the whole journalistic class rises in his defense, as did I. But a week later, was it? No one has anything to say except good things about the murder of Daria Dugina, who was a journalist. So I am disgusted, outraged, appalled. I am also scared. It's this last year, it's gotten scarier and scarier and scarier to be a public intellectual, which is the career I have chosen because academia wouldn't have me. Do we really want to do this, people? Do we really want to be threatening or actually killing people, as you said, for their ideas? It's bad time.
When Frank Zappa went to the Congress, when Tipper Gore and all those Democrat senators' wives were trying to censor music, his whole testimony was, we are talking about words here, people. We're not talking about violence. We're not talking about any actions. We're just talking about stuff that exists in your head. And we're telling people that there's some things that you're just not allowed to have in your head.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so So Dugin and Daria both advocated for the war, for the invasion, and advocated for a full mobilization, like a bigger war in Ukraine. And in fact, the Kremlin got pissed off at them for this and removed Alexander from his position at Moscow State University. And he has been banned, as I understand it, from Russian state TV and media.
But
they won't have him on these shows anymore because he's too hawkish on Ukraine. Now,
I will say this real quick.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Has never said Dugin's name in public, really.
Right.
Until the assassination. So now they've made him a martyr.
That's right. Yeah. Whether advocating for the invasion of Ukraine is a good thing, that's a big topic. I'll address that. It's Mr. Anti-War here, lifelong anti-war guy here. I'm not anti-war. I'm anti-imperialist, but I'm most certainly not anti-war. I've never been a pacifist. I'm all for war if it's necessary. And I think there is a very strong argument. I'm not saying I'm quite there yet, but there is a very powerful argument to be made for Russia needing to do this out of self-defense, that there was a war in eastern Ukraine since 2014, and some would argue since 2008, following a coup that was orchestrated by the United States and the CIA. People of the Donbass, of the eastern Ukraine, overwhelmingly wanted to be a part of Russia, not Ukraine. And in response to that, the Ukrainian government has launched a war over the last many years against the people of the Donbass, and thousands of people have died as a result of that. And that, in addition to the Azov battalion taking power within the Ukrainian military and murdering, I think it was a couple hundred people in Odessa who were pro-Russian separatists who were trapped. A crowd of Ukrainian people, like Azov people, closed them off in this building. Scott Ritter talked about it on my show. Sealed off the building and then set it on fire, and a couple hundred people died. And that's what set Alexander Dugin off toward calling for war against Ukraine. That's when he wanted an occupation. He wanted a war against Ukraine. So, it is, I still see it as equivalent to China or Russia establishing a military alliance with Mexico and Canada and moving its troops and missiles into Canada and Mexico that were pointed at the United States. Would I be anti-war then? Hell no. I'd probably be for an invasion of Mexico and Canada to take out that threat. It's very much similar to that, I think, and we need to take that argument seriously. Do we really think that Russia was not acting in self-defense when it did this?
Let's forget about the hypotheticals here. How do people feel about a neo-Nazi battalion acting across borders with funding from the largest empire in the world, like with impunity, with complete impunity from the entire Western world, essentially? Like, right. Do you want that out there?
So I have asked several people, including Scott Ritter, about this. To what extent are the Azov people actually Nazis? And I don't think they're full-fledged Nazis. They're most certainly racist, as is, by the way, much of the Western media now. It's cool to call Russians orcs, apparently. Malcolm Nance on MSNBC, everybody's favorite black guy among the liberal intelligentsia, he loves talking about orcs this and orcs that, referring to Russians and how it's awesome to kill them.
You hear that helicopter? You hear that helicopter?
Yeah. 5, 4, 3, stand by. Yeah, he's the biggest jackass in the world. But it's very common now. It's very cool to be racist against Russians. So that's the Azov, and they get that stuff from the orcs thing. It comes from the Azov battalion. I think they're the ones who coined that term. It's a racist slur against Russians, and so they're definitely a racist separatist regime. And at least the Azov is, and I think the Ukrainian regime is, generally speaking. So just racist against Russians, so that's fine as long as they're not racist against black people or against you or Jews. We don't care. That's fine. The racist against Russians, and then anti-Russian racism is now de rigueur in the West. It's cool to be anti-Russian. So yeah, but they're not. I haven't seen evidence that the Azov people are you know, they're for like a corporatist economy, you know, in which there are cartels of industry managed by the state, and you know, they have a cult of personality around a dead guy, Stefan Bandera. They don't have a cult of personality around a currently living guy, which is good. That's different than fascism historically. You know, have they read the Rerum Novarum, you know, the papal encyclical of the 1890s that gave birth to fascism? I don't think so. You know, are they Hitlerites? Are they Mussolini types? I don't think so either, but they're most certainly a racist regime.
Well, it's funny you don't hear people talking with this level of nuance about neo-Nazi organizations outside of the Azov Battalion, right? Anybody who tiptoes near fascism or Nazism is subhuman, acceptably in the West. But these people get a pass.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I mean, it's amazing. Everyone should go just Google Azov and Nazi or Azov and fascist, and you'll see like articles in Vice, in Wired, in the New York Times, in Atlantic, and Mother Jones, all these liberal lefty outfits that no longer mention this. But, you know, until about a year ago, oh God, it was terrible. There's all these Nazis in Ukraine. What are we going to do about this? But now it's like, they're cool. Let's send them more missiles, more surface to air missiles, which might be used against commercial airliners someday.
Mm-hmm. Well,
great.
Okay. On the free speech tip, you are, when you talk about power and when you talk about what motivates people, you are on the side of ideas, like Hegelian. You think that ideas hold power, against the Marxist critique that it's material or political in some ways, sometimes. But here's where I was going with this. When it comes to neo-Nazi groups in the United States, and I think Azov Battalion to a certain extent, they use the imagery of Nazism as like a scarecrow because they want to be as intimidating and badass as possible.
Yes.
And only nerds read books, right? Like, you know, your standard guy on the ground is not going to give a shit about about Mein Kampf even, you know? Like, I think they're acting in their own personal interests in a way, and that there's, to some extent, like predictable forces that you see these dominoes fall in.
Yeah, I mean, that's most politics, right? It's a handful of people who actually do the reading and have the ideas. Those are the intellectuals and professors who are the ones who cause the wars, who create the wars, who dream up the wars. And then there's the masses, and it's just a question of how many people in the masses we can convince and persuade to go to war for us. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that most of those guys in the Azov Battalion never read a word of fascism. They probably know very little about Stefan Bandera, except that he was a great Ukrainian national hero in World War II. Yeah, who lined up Jews and shot them to death, apparently, and entered into all sorts of agreements with Hitler. Yeah, but yeah, this is the way politics is. I mean, this is what James Burnham has said. I forget, who are we just reading just the other day, who was saying the same thing, that politics is just one of the anarchists, one of the great anarchists in the anarchism course. I think it was Bakunin. One of them was talking about how politics is always a matter of a minority imposing its will on the majority. Always. And he's right. So historically, I mean, it's not necessarily the case. I mean, it's possible that you could have an entire population that is interested and motivated and participating in politics, but that's just never been the case. It's always been a minority rule, always.
In your History of World War II course on registeredacademy.com, you talk about how not even Hitler was Hitler. And that, you know, if you actually look at these people's actions, their biography, what they actually say, all the myths about them start to crumble. And I think that's why they're going so hard on free speech and going after individuals in particular. Is it's hard to like make the nerd argument that their ideas are bad, but it's easy to call somebody evil and then censor them to where you can't even engage with their ideas to see if they're evil or not. You can only show scary pictures of them screaming in a language you don't understand and then having the worst thing that they've ever said out of context underneath.
Yeah, again, this is, you know, I tweeted out something 5 or 6 days ago, I think, a study that was done a few years ago. I didn't know about it until recently, that more than 50% of adult Americans read at below a 6th grade level. Now, that's who votes in this country. That's who votes. We are taught, and the other half, the people who read above the 6th grade level, they're no great shakes either. I mean, Americans are notoriously, infamously ignorant and pretty dumb, and half of them are barely literate, for God's sake. So how are you going to convince those people to go to war? How are you going to convince those people of anything in politics? They don't know what's going on. They can't read. So you have to appeal to their emotions. Demagoguery is the only way to influence most Americans. Think about it, right? If they don't read, they don't understand big concepts, they don't know anything about the rest of the world, how are you going to convince them to go to war with another country somewhere they've never heard of without appealing to their base emotions, to their feelings? That's why Americans keep falling over and over again for demagogues. And by the way, Trump is a demagogue too, in some ways. I just think he happens to have some decent analyses, but sure, it's all about appealing to emotions. Build the wall, as if that would ever stop immigration. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but it feels good.
Yeah. You brought up Rick Wilson, and I've been holding on to this clip for a while. Like, I think it's important to see like the level that some of these people are at, like the stuff that the Lincoln Project is still putting out. I do call it crazy ex-girlfriend, like their fixation on Trump, and it's pure demagoguery. It's almost like from a horror movie, like how much they're just psychologically fixated on this one person. So this is what the Lincoln Project is still putting out, 18 months after Trump is out of office.
Let's see it.
We get it, Donald. You hate us.
To the Losers Project.
And hey, we're not your biggest fans either. But there's one thing you know. We've never lied to you. In a funny way. We're the only people you could trust. We told you that you'd lose. And you did.
But you didn't listen. Now you're losing.
That Mike Pence would stab you in the back on January 6th. And he did.
He's backing away from your train wreck.
How Mitch and Kevin were using your name for money and power. And they are.
Mitch McConnell's Washington consultants are making big money using your name.
And we told you Ron DeSantis was coming for you.
He's making it his Republican Party.
And now he thinks he's bigger than you.
You've probably heard this before, but it was smaller than we expected.
Now we're telling you the truth again.
And there's no one you can trust. No one.
They're turning on you. All of them. We tell you we're sad for you. But like we said before, we always tell you the truth.
Not one word about policy, not one word about law, not one word about Trump's political positions, not word about anything of substance, not one word about anything that matters to my life or your life or the lives of Americans. Nothing. Just personal attacks. They just don't like the guy personally. I mean, of course, the Lincoln Project is mostly concerned about the American empire. That's why they're after Trump. But most Americans who are anti-Trump only care about his personality. Only. They couldn't name 2 policies that he's responsible for. These are craven people who are really dangerous, and because they have a lot of power, a lot of cultural power, and they love them some war, and they will maintain the American empire by any means necessary. They will protect the American empire by any means necessary, and they're obviously willing to abrogate civil liberties. They're obviously willing to do anything to start a war in Russia, against Russia or against China. And they will lie and deceive and censor to get their way.
That video looks like the script itself. The only thing I can conclude of it, if you were to take it seriously, is that is an attempt to get Trump to kill himself.
Yeah,
it's not an attempt to convince anybody. It's just an attempt to make anybody who likes this guy and him himself, if he ever sits down and sees it on Fox News or whatever, just to feel like shit and kill himself.
You're all alone, Donald. You're surrounded by enemies. No one likes you. Even your closest advisors and colleagues like Mike Pence and Ron DeSantis, they want to kill you too or something. Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to work because Donald Trump has about 75 million people who like him a lot. Yeah. And he has, within the 75 million, those are just the people who vote for him. But within that, it's millions now. Her and MAGA full on. full on MAGA people who love them some Donald Trump and will do anything for him.
My biggest problem with Donald Trump is that he has too many people around him who like him too much.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. As I've been saying, MAGA is now a beast of its own, though. I mean, it is operating on its own. I mean, it's very separate from Trump. Bannon and Trump, I don't think even talk to each other. But Bannon is really the leader of MAGA, I think, more than Trump is. Trump is the figurehead. He is the personality they rally around, but Bannon is their leader every single day. He is giving them directions. It is something to watch on the War Room. He is giving directions to this movement about what to do, and it's very specific. They're taking over precincts. They're taking over, state parties, local parties, Republican Party, and they're vying, and they're about to take over the House, although it looks like they're not going to win the Senate, which is a surprising development. But they are going to take over the House, and they're going to have a big majority in the House, and they can do a lot of damage in the House with oversight committees, which they'll be doing, investigating people like good Tony Fauci, who just retired just in the nick of time. That was really good timing for him to be leaving just before the election, or just after the election, before they start investigating his ass and subpoenaing him and prosecuting him, which is all going to happen. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
The first octogenarian politician in Washington, D.C. to ever forfeit his power. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Why is he walking away now? I mean, I thought he was NIH director for life. So yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, I just hope we don't go to war.
Yeah. That's
it. That's it. As long as and depression, a worldwide economic depression, either one. I hope we don't do either one of those things.
Okay.
The war we can control by policy, by direct policy. The depression is a little different, but I just really hope we don't go to war with Russia and China.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
The thing about Ukraine is, I think it gives Democrats a sense of meaning in their life, in that there's a clearly defined good guys, clearly defined bad guys, and you don't have to worry about domestic policy at all, because there's this big thing happening. Anything bad that happens here, we can blame on Putin. Inflation, gas prices going up, it's all Putin's fault, because we have to focus all of our energies on something that doesn't affect me directly out there. From a narrative perspective, it's an existential thing to motivate the base coming ahead of midterms. But with the Democrats, well, not even Democrats, Biden, through the Department of Education, canceling $10,000 of student loan debt today. I'm going to put up this graphic here. Democrats are doing their best job to campaign on policy accomplishments. And I know some people who take this very, very seriously, and I think we should put our policy geek Democrat hat on and say, have these people accomplished anything? So this is the graphic Biden released. Inflation Reduction Act. Colbert and all those people call it like a great healthcare and climate bill.
Sam Hazelby, who I went to grad school with him at Columbia. He's a professor somewhere. He's on Twitter. And Ben Burgess retweeted this. He said that, and this is something a lot of people on the left are saying. He's on the left. Sam is like a socialist leftist. He was saying that that Biden withdrawing from Afghanistan and signing or doing the student loan, what's it called? Refund or something?
Well, he's canceling $10,000 of debt.
Cancellation of student loan debt are the two. I think he said the two most courageous acts by a president in the last 50 years. But here's the thing: withdrawing from Afghanistan, maybe, although I wouldn't say it was courageous. I would say it was just an act of necessity for him. But the student loan thing, it's obviously buying votes. I mean, what else could it be? I'd be sympathetic to voting for someone if they gave me a bunch of money too. canceled my debt. I'd be like, hey, I remember when George Bush wrote us all checks back in the early aughts, I think. I got a check in the mail for like $350, and it was signed by the U.S. Treasury. Yeah, it was this tax rebate that the Bush administration. I was like, even though I hated the guts of the Bush administration, I was like, thanks, George. I'll have a beer with you now. I mean, it really, like, for a second there, I was like, kind of like felt warmly toward the president for a second. This is going to win a lot of votes. A lot of young Democrats, right? The base. This is the base we're talking about. People with student loan debt. It's people in their 20s and 30s who have, professional jobs. And by the way, this is people who went to college, which is the key constituency. That's the core key constituency of the Democratic Party. People who went to college, who live in big cities on the coasts. Those are the people who run the world. They staff all the important positions at all the big institutions. They're Democrats. They vote Democrat. They're liberal, et cetera, et cetera. Doing a big favor to them. It's going to get a lot of votes. Smart move. Now, how does it feel for many of us like me? So I finally paid off my student loans last year, Michael.
Oh, wow.
Last year.
Wow.
At the age of 56, I've paid off my last loan. Yeah, just finished. And nothing for me. Thanks. And, the taxpayers are paying for all this anyway. It's not the government. It's not the Fed. It's the taxpayers. It's our money going to this. So,
dude, it just dawned on me.
Yeah.
So I don't have any student loans. I went to in-state school. I got a decent scholarship. Worked a lot of jobs throughout college.
Mm-hmm.
But after college, I deliberately made a choice not to get a master's degree because I'm like, I'm not going into debt for accreditation that I don't think I'll use. I can study on my own without going into the institution. But dude, that master's degree would have cost me $10,000. I could have had that master's degree for free if I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. Right. That's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. You could have, played your cards wrong.
Yeah.
It's just cynical. Mm-hmm. I mean, we know it's buying votes. I mean, it happens in August, right before the election. Really? Come on, guys. And they don't care, whether it is economically viable, whether it is ethically okay to do this, whether it's screwing over a huge portion of the population, people like me, which it is. Yeah, they don't care. They just know it's going to win some votes. They're desperate. They know they're in big trouble. Although I don't know. I want to see the numbers on this. I don't know why they're not going to win, why they're not going to lose the Senate. I don't get it. Because you have J.D. Vance in Ohio, Blake Masters in Arizona, who are, I think, definitely going to win. And those are huge MAGA guys. And then there's just others. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the numbers on this. This has been recent when people have been saying that the Democrats are actually going to hold on to the Senate. But again, the House is going to be an unbelievable show. Well, House of Representatives is going to be an unbelievable show starting in January.
How many times have the pollsters been wrong, though, recently?
True that. Very, very well. Yeah. In 2016, they were quite wrong.
Yeah.
Famously wrong. So yeah, sure. Who knows? It's true.
Then even 2020, the Republicans were not supposed to make gains in the House like that, or they weren't supposed to do as well in the House as they did. There's supposed to be this huge wave following Biden being the most popular president ever. And that didn't really happen. It was pretty moderate.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, from our point of view, I think we want to split Congress. I think it's not a good idea to have one party, in particular, one faction of a party controlling both houses of Congress. They get less done, which is always good for us. The less they accomplish, the better for us. So I think it's possibly a good thing. And then again, the House oversight committees are going to go hog wild on all the important stuff. They're going to go hog wild on the Wuhan lab, the lab leak theory. And by the way, we're going to do a conference because of your brilliant idea on the lab leak theory soon. I haven't asked the people who are going to do it yet, but that will be happening soon. It's going to be huge and awesome. And so I think that'll be really good. I think actually American electoral politics will be fairly good next year because of this, if there is a split Congress, because you're going to get the good investigations from the Republican House. You're going to have the Senate Democrats will stop any legislation from going through, which is great. And, so we'll know a lot, but we won't have many laws passed, which is wonderful. It's exactly what we want. We want more information, more information and fewer laws.
It's tough though. This is where people like Ben Burgess, kind of wipe the floor with us in that, as somebody who leans so anti-government and just automatically in your head, legislation bad, government paying for something bad. I think a leftist or somebody who's really on their P's and Q's about what the Democrats are accomplishing can look at all these bills, list these accomplishments, and like, you don't see the effects of these bills yet. They just happen. So every time a bill gets passed, it's like, this was intended to do this. We don't know if it's going to do this, but it's passed with the good intentions. And here's all the great things that are going to happen because of it. And then leading up to a midterm election, for example, that can be enough to sway Democrats to see Joe Biden as a Democrat who has been effective just by having power.
I'm not exactly sure what your argument is there.
Okay, let me bring up the graphic again.
Yeah.
So like the Chips and Science Act, like right there, like that's something that pretty much everybody kind of agrees that we should be doing. Is, I'm not a subsidies guy, but like internationally, we should be subsidizing the production of chips and
oh yeah,
restricting American manufacturers from going to U.S. or China for that, just so we're domestically not dependent on them. That's fair. The Safer Communities Act. It's like more funding for mental health resources for communities. Apparently, the PACT Act for veterans. That's something that's way overdue. In that, like, I don't like government spending, but like, you ruin these veterans' lives, you owe them this health care.
Okay, well, the Inflation Reduction Act is the big one.
Yeah,
at the top there, and that's a nightmare, as I understand it.
It is, yeah.
So everyone knows about the 87,000 new IRS agents, which we will all be happy to see. Yeah, happy to see knocking on our doors soon. There's a lot of Green New Deal stuff in there, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of climate change stuff, which I think is all nonsense. I mean, I think it's useless. God damn, California, my glorious state here, just banned the sale of gasoline cars starting in 2035.
Yeah.
Just anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe. So what are you arguing that Biden has been productive?
I'm playing like devil's advocate here. It's so easy to be trapped in our world of the Democrats are, as Jack, the perfume nationalist, points it, the literal party of Satan and literally worse than the Nazis. And just step into the matrix here and try to see, like, Biden has always had this ambition of being like an FDR, of like really centralizing government power and getting a lot done. And he might honestly have something to stand on for that, if you believe that the government is going to solve all of our problems with 87,000 IRS agents and expanding the bureaucracy, you know?
Well, okay. I mean, so we can't really comment on this intelligently unless we read every one of these bills, which is not happening. No one has, including the people who voted for them in Congress. You know, that's number one. Number two, we do know, though, that there's a whole lot of spending in all these things. I don't know how many tens of billions of dollars, but it's in the tens of billions, maybe the hundreds of billions. Putting more money into the economy, which during a time of inflation seems like a disastrous idea. We know that a lot of it will be essentially pork barrel or what's it called when the government spends a lot of money on something that fails. Anyway, I forget, but there's a lot of that, a lot of spending money on things that will fail. They're likely to fail given the history of such legislation. So I don't see any reason to be excited about it. Chip manufacturing, I mean, that should be left to the private sector. I don't see why the government needs to be investing in that. The private sector can produce chips better than anyone and has historically. So why should the government step in? The government is notoriously inefficient. You know, you don't need to talk to my libertarian friends to find that out. We know that in all matters except for war, government's pretty inefficient. And even in war, I think you could argue that if they privatized it, they'd get a lot more people killed.
Yeah. I'm not a pro-government guy. It's hard to step in, but
I know.
have you seen I wanted to talk about this earlier. Let me give it a little bit more context to this, like the what is it, Dark Joe or Dark Brandon memes?
No.
No. Okay, I wanted to talk about this when it was happening, but there's a lot of memes being put forward, like when al-Zawahiri was assassinated, and just more so as Biden is quote unquote accomplishing things. Democrats are insecure that he is openly senile, that he is, and they hate having a person of weakness on be the face of their project.
Yeah.
As many of our guests, Gio included, have pointed out, cultural production starts on 4chan and goes through all the dirtbag left cycles and then ends up, on TV, on, completely acceptable. There was dark MAGA memes when Donald Trump walked out to the Undertaker's theme, the pro wrestlers theme, January this year. And then everybody's like, oh shit, Donald Trump's back. He's pissed off. And then there are all these memes about Donald Trump being evil and taking back power and shit. And the left appropriated that, and they don't even know that they did this. But some 4chan people and even some Chinese people made memes of Joe Biden looking badass and had this dark Brandon meme being put out. And so, again, they're desperate to project strength here. And there might be a legitimate case in that the government has gotten way, way bigger. And if you want to crush your enemies, it looks like there's progress here.
So what does dark Brandon mean? That Biden himself has become masculine?
Yeah.
And virile?
Yeah, he's virile and masculine, and he's going to crush all the guds. Yeah.
Oh, he's like the American Putin.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, okay. He's going to be shirtless, like shooting a sniper rifle.
But it's okay. I think it's okay because it's so obviously not true, and it's a wish fulfillment for them that makes it accessible. But yeah, I
mean, I don't see how it's possible that Joe Biden is making any significant decisions on his own. I don't think I'm assuming he's not choosing anything, that everything is being dictated to him. Everything.
Yeah.
And can you imagine though? Can you imagine having that guy as the head of your party? I mean, that must be really hard. I haven't heard too many. They must be hiding their feelings really well, because I haven't heard too many Democrats talk about this. But it must be just awful watching him deliver your message.
It's like a family secret. It's like the 100-year-old grandpa in your family that shouldn't be driving, but everybody lets him drive and nobody talks about it.
Well, yeah, it's the 100-year-old grandpa who can't stop farting at family gatherings, and you just pretend it doesn't happen. Just everyone, you hear it, and you smell it, but you just like keep talking and act like it didn't happen. It's that's the Democratic Party.
Okay. All right. I want to move on to the fun story now. Before Andrew Tate got canceled, I want to ask you: have you heard of this guy before?
Tate?
Yeah.
Sure. Kickboxer.
Okay.
He's a kickboxer, so of course I knew about him.
Okay, nice. Before we talk about him in particular, what are your opinions on TikTok, the platform?
Well, I mean, as I understand it, it's owned and controlled by this Chinese Communist Party, so that's a problem. But I haven't watched TikTok much. I know that it's got a reputation for being the place where all the weird liberals and leftists hang out, and the trans people hang out, and all this stuff, and all the queer people hang out. I mean, as a medium, I don't have no problem with it. As a format, I have no problem with it. As a neutral platform, it's fine, I guess. And in fact, I think we should start putting videos on there. But I don't know why.
There's a lot of people my age, so I'm late 20s, and who see it as Satan, as the devil, as like the worst thing ever, and have surprisingly Puritan attitudes about it. That it's, it's this thing that the youth are doing, and it's crazy, and it's distorting their brains, it's frying their brains. I downloaded it for a week, and I couldn't watch a movie after staring at my phone for so long. It's so It programs you and it pays attention to you, you know.
Well, I will say one thing about TikTok. As far as I know, there's a lot of dancing on it, which is great. That's a good thing. We need more dancing.
Dude, I think that is a positive, legitimately positive shift in our culture, that more people feel comfortable moving their body and express themselves that way. Yeah.
Always. I've always said you can judge the psychic health of a culture by how much dancing goes on. And when you look at periods of American history where there was a lot of dancing, like the 20s and the 60s, you know, those are the periods that people like you and me really like, you know, where there was more cultural freedom, less puritanical restraints. These are the eras, the decades that we celebrate, and where all the good stuff came out of, you know, where the best music and the best movies came out of, best literature. When you see a lot of dancing, people being closer to their bodies, being comfortable with their bodies and sexuality and rhythm and all that alchemy, when rhythm hits the body and what it does to people is really magical, and has been for a long time since people discovered that alchemy. In this country, the slaves, of course, were the first to discover it in a big way. And then they spread that magic to everyone else over the subsequent centuries. And at the times when slave music and rhythm and dancing are popular are the best times, I think, to be an American. So we need more of that. We need more dancing on TikTok and less talking about Ukraine.
Yeah. Okay. I'm 1,000% down with that. Again, it looks like a platform for fun. And the most wild and transgressive stuff that you can't find on Instagram, that you can't find on Twitter, you'll find on TikTok. And it's fun. Like, there's no political ideology to it, really. It's just people having fun. It's entertainment. It's like the only purpose is to get you to click another video. You know, it's just to keep the party going. And I've been missing that out of the internet. The internet's become so boring.
God, I mean, that's something I don't do anymore. I just follow the news. I don't have any fun. I don't watch anything for fun. I'm just watching and listening and reading the news and politics and philosophy and history. That's all I do these days. So yeah, it would be nice to go back to that, having some fun, and especially the culture. I'd really like this culture to get more into fun. Twitter is just, I mean, it's a pit of flesh-eating zombies. Twitter is the worst possible thing for your mental health. I mean, especially, I should say, political Twitter, where I hang out. Political Twitter is just an absolute acid bath for your soul. It's the worst possible thing. If you want to improve your mood, that's the last thing you should do, is go to Twitter. It's guaranteed to bring you down, make you feel bad, make you feel tense, make you feel anxious, make you feel put upon, attacked, you name it. So maybe maybe the Chinese Communist Party really understands how we should organize our society. Maybe they really have maybe they really know what's good out there, and maybe we should follow their lead more. The CCP really knows how to get things done in a positive way. We should vote for the CCP.
It is, like, oh my goodness, there's this app out there that gives me exactly what I want to see all the time, that just predicts exactly what I want to see and gives it to me. How horrible is this? Like,
sounds good to me. Yeah. I love watching people dance.
Okay. Here is the phenomenon that Mark Zuckerberg or somebody at Facebook has deemed too dangerous, too beyond the pale for Instagram and Facebook to show. The sensation. We're talking about it because all right. Here he is in all of his glory.
Mark, let's go.
What are you, as a little bitch? You're my Andrew motherfucking Tate. You ain't got button up shit. I'll walk into the fucking most premier establishment you can name with my shirt unbuttoned, so every bitch in there knows I cheat.
Little electric, my little plug. Ooh, let me get my little plug and plug it into my Tesla. Maybe I can get an erection one day. Is this the man you are?
Are you poly?
No, because that means they can talk to other dudes. That's fucking haram. That's atrocious. That's disgusting. Female promiscuity is disgusting to the point where females were executed for it.
Yeah.
And most of the world today...
As they should be.
Get the rocks.
Yeah.
Abdul?
Yeah, get the rocks.
Get the rocks. I can walk and have 10 wives behind me. That's perfectly acceptable.
So hold
if
on.
a woman has 10 men, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Absolutely vile.
Yeah.
Females should not talk to any man besides her brothers, her father, and the man she's with.
Okay. So it's okay. Two things are fascinating to me and important about Andrew Tate.
Great.
One is his immense popularity, from which he has derived his immense wealth. I just saw numbers about the number of people who are members of his. He has an online university too.
Yes.
I'd like to compete with him a little better. He's
Yes.
got, I forget how many thousands, many thousands of people pay him monthly to do that stuff. So that's important. That means there are a lot of men seeking this, what he has to offer, right? Number two is the extreme reaction to him by his critics and opponents. You know, taking him down from all of the social media platforms. Why? What is he saying that's so dangerous? And why must he be criticized and chastised and canceled? And why is he such a threat? I mean, are women going to be treated worse now because Andrew Tate is saying these things? Are they going to find themselves in someone's harem because Andrew Tate has been saying that's where they belong? So there's a lot of people who like him and a lot of people who hate him. Again, the division here is what's important. And there's a lot of people on both sides. Why on earth? I mean, he's just sticking his finger in the eye of feminism, which has been the dominant ideology in the West since the 1960s. The dominant racial liberalism and feminism have been the dominant ideologies in the West since the 1960s. And he's just like, fuck you to both of them, but especially the feminism part.
The racial, he's biracial. His father is black. He's from the mean streets of Goshen, Indiana. And he kind of, it's funny, he does play the social justice warrior card on his own race a lot of times when he's debating with liberals, like who claim to be on the side of marginalized communities. He's like, I'm black, and how do you claim to speak for somebody?
Well, I don't know about the race piece, but he's certainly sticking his thumb in the eye of feminism for sure. And I mean, how sincere is he? I mean, I'm sure he's partly sincere, at least. He's a young dude. I mean, he's a 35-year-old guy, with a bunch of money. He's a kickboxer, and he's just feeling himself. What can I say? I mean, who cares? It's astonishing to me that anyone cares at all. He's just a silly guy to me.
Yeah.
He's a silly braggart, which doesn't bother me. I don't care if people brag. You can brag all you want. Why do we care what this bald-headed guy from Indiana has to say?
And how many Puritan, Protestant cultural taboos does he violate every second of his existence? Flaunting the wealth, flaunting the alcohol, polyamory or polygamy, explicit polygamy,
He borrows from, it's interesting, he borrows from both African American culture with the ostentation, right? That's come straight out of African American culture. And Mormonism, the polygamy. Old Mormonism, two American very American things, even though he was really raised in Luton, England, right?
Yeah.
That's where he's really from. That's why he has that odd accent, the sort of half American, half British accent. Who gives a fuck about Andrew Tate? I don't. I need someone to explain why he's a danger. I also need someone to explain why he's so popular. What is he giving young men that is so powerful? Man, I can kind of guess on that one.
Yes. Okay. This is all right. You know how he made his fortune after kickboxing?
No.
Webcamming. He was a webcam pimp, essentially.
He ran a webcam site. He wasn't a model himself, you mean?
He wasn't a model himself. He ran. He had a house of about a dozen girls, maybe more.
Wow.
And when he talks about it, basically he says he just have the girls in front of the camera, smiling, looking pretty, pretending to type into a keyboard, and he'd be the one behind the keyboard typing all the messages to the followers and trying to get as much money out of them as possible.
Oh, wow.
So what he did is he provided emotionally vulnerable men with a simulated need that they had, feminine affection, at a very, very high level. What he's doing with Hustlers University and the War Room is finding another itch, another need, another pain point, as they say in marketing, and providing emotionally vulnerable men a feeling of brotherhood, a feeling like they belong somewhere, and a feeling like that they're working towards something. Like when they see him in the Bugatti, that's aspirational. Something to want, something to desire, and a group of like-minded men to pursue it with, which is something that is completely missing in a lot of Western society.
Yeah. So this goes to the whole Jordan Peterson phenomenon too, right? Which is these guys exist because there are a lot of lonely and alienated young men. And that is a topic for discussion. I'm just sorry that the answers to that major problem so far have been Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. I would like for there to be other answers. I have tried myself to provide some of those answers. And maybe we should do more of that, in fact. But I think there's a lot of things that young men can do who find themselves in that situation to improve their lives and their happiness. I don't even know what Andrew Tate has to offer them. I mean, these things are completely unattainable for the vast majority of men. You're not going to have 10 girlfriends and millions of dollars and driving Lamborghinis, etc. I don't know. I mean, I guess he's giving them the license to say stuff they're not allowed to say, within the feminist regime, which is thrilling. And there's a feeling of liberation there, but it's just going to make you more alienated at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're going to be even more isolated and more at odds with your world, and you're going to be more disliked, and women are going to be less likely to fuck you. So it seems sort of self-defeating to me what he's doing. Jordan Peterson, on the other hand, I do think he has some good advice. I think cleaning your room is a great idea. That's about the best thing I've heard Jordan Peterson say, by the way. I think it's a great advice. Clean your room, everyone. That might actually help you get laid.
Yeah. Okay. This is not practical advice, but this is something that I think you'll probably agree with Tate on, and speaks to that point. There's this new internet phenomenon of like people like Andrew Tate, and there's like a million of them now cropping up, trying to be a copycat of him, where, we're speaking truth to women. Like everything that you wanted to say to a woman, this guy actually says to their faces, for entertainment. And here's a clip in that situation, but I think you might like what he has to say.
I don't think most women can actually genuinely understand how lonely the majority of men are. Yeah. And you need to truly understand, if you're Joe Schmo, average in nearly every way, in Starbucks working, you ain't getting a DM ever. You girls will never be lonely. As much as you might be unhappy with the possible suitors, you can at least fuck about and flirt if you feel sad. There are men out here in the world who have genuine loneliness. And I can prove this statistically. Why do you think it's all the men killing themselves compared to the women?
Yep. Indeed. So the statistic I have heard is that, I don't know if I've said this on here, but that, and I'm not even sure it's true, but I've heard it from multiple sources, so it's probably at least partly true, that 20% of men have sex with 80% of women. So meaning that 80% of men are not getting much sex, and that the men in the bottom half of that are really getting no sex at all. And it's not just the sex. In fact, I think the sex might be the least of it. They don't have any companionship. They don't have women around them who are, generally speaking, the ones who are good at talking about feelings. And so men have no outlet for their bad feelings. And that's a recipe for disaster, if not some mass shootings. This is, I mean, it's curious. I don't know if this is a new phenomenon. I don't know how lonely men were in the 1950s or 1940s. I think probably less so, because there were more institutions and because that were sort of collective popular institutions that people belong to.
Well, this is what Jordan Peterson, the point he was making in the New York Times about enforced monogamy, in that it was a cultural standard that there was one man for one woman, so that evened out the ratio a little bit. As a cultural practice, you have monogamy, and the institution of marriage has gotten a lot weaker. That's one factor that might contribute to the loneliness of average men, especially.
Maybe, although that means that there are more available women. The decline of marriage means that there are more single women out there, more divorcees.
That doesn't mean that those divorcees are going to give their time and attention to an average man. It means that they might be content to share a top 20% man.
Well, I can tell you what goes on in the dating apps. Which is that the 20% of men have a great time, but the women have a terrible time because those 20% know that they're in the 20%, and they know that they can get a woman anytime they want on the apps, and so they do not settle down, and they are not looking for marriage or long-term relationships, whereas most women are on the apps. The vast majority are, and so you have a lot of frustrated women and heartbroken women, and then you have the 20% of men who are having a decent time, although I think ultimately they're going to suffer too from not having a long-term relationship. But then the men who are not in the 20% or whatever the percentage is, right, who are below that, I just think they're lost in the wilderness. And that's who I'm concerned about. That's who Andrew Tate's concerned about. That's who Jordan Peterson's concerned about. And I think it explains a lot of what's going on in this country, especially in politics. I mean, we know that the rise of the alt-right or the new right is, I think, largely men like that. It seems that way. You know, Gio has talked about this, and Gio is one of those men. I mean, he has said he hasn't had sex.
I'll say this as well. Antifa as well.
Maybe
men looking for a purpose politically, just completely lost. And people in Antifa talk about the ecstasy of being in a black bloc and enacting all their violent urges, almost as if it's like Fight Club. You know, it that community sense and that shared catharsis gives a lot of young men meaning.
It also allows them to be heroes.
Yeah.
And that's what all men, or most men, want. I think they want to be heroes to women, or heroes to society, which includes women. I think most of us have had heroic fantasies of being the hero. And so if you're an Antifa, you're out there beating up the fascists in the streets of Portland, you're a hero. If you are a right-wing guy and you're out there talking about feeding pedophiles into a wood chipper, you're a hero, at least in your mind. Problem is, turns out that doesn't get you laid either.
Yeah. I want to talk about a misconception out there that goes along with this. A lot of people see the rise of OnlyFans and say, oh my God, our society is becoming so degenerate. It's so awful. Our porn is becoming so extreme and everybody. But really what OnlyFans is selling is the girlfriend experience. Anybody can look up porn all they want to. It already exists. The reason why OnlyFans is getting billions and billions of dollars is you get a notification on your phone that there's some girl who has put a private message to you. Maybe she remembered your birthday. Maybe she just put a picture of herself smiling, and you get the feeling that somebody out there cares about you, knows your name, and it fills that hole.
That's right. That's right. And there's communication with them. There's DMs on OnlyFans, and there's, the replies in the posts. And not that I've ever seen it, of course. I would never look at OnlyFans, but no, in my experience in OnlyFans, it has been, the feeling is actually not like porn. The feeling is what you're saying. It's much friendlier and warmer, and actually less dirty. I mean, some of it's nasty and dirty, of course, but less than Pornhub, much less than Pornhub. There is much more of a girlfriend vibe, and a lot of OnlyFans models, I guess they're called, don't even take their clothes off.
Yeah,
a lot of them, so, and they have big followings. I can think of a couple people I know personally who do that, who never take their clothes off, and they have a lot of followers. So yeah, it's interesting. I think that is evidence. I think you're right. That it is evidence of these men that we're talking about looking for that kind of connection that's beyond just sex.
And I guess before technology and before feminism and before, And when people were more constrained to their local area and had to survive the elements, for example, marriage as an institution was more stable, I think. Or, and then as technology has liberated all of us, we're more and more isolated, and we're getting simulations of the thing that we crave so much.
Yeah, I just think that men who find themselves in that situation need to figure out how to make themselves more attractive to women.
Mm-hmm.
Option A is to go buy some Andrew Tate courses about how to be a badass pimp player and talk shit about women, and talk about having a harem of 10 chicks who will do anything you want, et cetera, et cetera. Or you can say to yourself, what do women want? And can I give that to them?
Mm-hmm.
Can I do something, make myself over in ways that are okay with me that women want? And I think men, if they spend some time on that, can find some things that they won't mind doing that will make them more attractive to women.
Yeah.
But very few men seem willing to do that, or they get very weird ideas about what that is. They think going to the gym and putting on as much muscle as possible is going to get them a girlfriend, when in fact a lot of women don't even like big muscles like that. Some do, but I think most don't. They like good bodies, but they don't want big.
It has to be a number. It has to be a number that they achieve. It has to be something quantifiable and robotic that they can conquer and achieve. It can't be something ephemeral. It can't be, I have to talk to a human being with a bunch of varied, emotions and ideas, and actually figure out something mysterious. Yeah,
it's the number of pounds they can deadlift. That number, that's what matters, or the amount of money, or money they make.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of women are attracted to money. Don't get me wrong, but that's not all. They need more than that. In fact, in my experience, I mean, the Bay Area is full of men who have a lot of money who don't do well on the dating market because they're assholes, because they spend all their time working and they don't really care about relationships or anything like that. So you don't need a lot of money. You don't need big muscles to have a companion, to find a woman who will like you. There are many, many things you can do. And the first thing is to get in touch with yourself. I'm going to sound really new agey and cucked, excuse me, but to understand yourself and understand who you are and what you need and what you want and what you're made of, and your emotional structure. And listen to people, listen to women, that's where a relationship is in the communication, is in the back and forth. And you have to listen and take seriously what people say to you. And I think a lot of men are very bad at that, because they're trained not to be good at that. They're trained to be all about fast interactions, transactional relationships, aggression, that kind of thing. That's how we're trained to operate in the world. But that's not what women like. It's not what I like either. And I'd like to see men spending more time working on their communication skills and their ability with what's called empathy and compassion. And I'm going to sound like a 1970s male feminist, but I think that's really important. Warren Farrell, who's been on my show a couple times, was the pioneer of this stuff. And he was right. I think there was a lot back then that feminism had to teach men, and the gay liberation movement had to teach straight men about such things as feelings, as emotional IQ. That was really valuable, and they no longer do that. Now they just yell at us. Now the feminists just yell at us and tell us that we're patriarchal pieces of shit, which they might be partly right about. So again, men, if you want to get laid and you want to have a companion, you want to be happier, spend less time watching Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson and in the gym, and spend more time like in therapy, good therapy. I just lost half the audience with that.
Yeah.
They don't like that.
What do you? One more aspect of Tate and like the manosphere space in general, like the self-interest. Don't you think that there's something a little bit positive about putting out there, this is who I am, this is what I want? Like, it's an emotional outburst. It's almost kind of a temper tantrum in some ways, but just like, you know what, I'm sick of being a loser, or not even that, but just, I am going to act in my own interests. I don't care what feminism says I should be. This is who I am. This is what I want to be.
Well, okay, so the reason I say men should look inside themselves is they need to find out, first of all, if they even want to have a relationship, and it's quite possible that they don't, and that's fine. I don't think you need to have a relationship, a long-term relationship with a woman to be happy. I do not think that. I think you can be a player and be happy, or not have relationships at all and be happy, I think, potentially. But if you do want that, if you do want not just the sex, but the companionship, yeah, I mean, I think you need to understand yourself, and I think you need to understand what women want, and I think you need to give it to them. I mean, it is transactional, for God's sake. You need to figure out what women want, and then you need to decide whether you're willing to give it to them. But yes, I do like coming out and saying, this is what I want, although it's just not, I'm not always clear that is what they want. First of all, a harem of 10 women sounds great, but I'm pretty sure it's not that fun, actually. A lot of work, a lot of conflict, a lot of difficulty. That's why there's so few harems in the world.
Yeah.
It's also, you're going to have a very hard time finding women who will do that for you, unless you're a zillionaire, and then you can maybe get some very young women who are broke to do it. But most women who have anything going on are not gonna be in it, not interested in being in your harem.
Yeah.
So yeah, find out what women want and then give it to them, guys.
It is a very boyish fantasy. Like, this looks like a 12-year-old boy. Like,
it is
big fast cars, kickboxing.
Exactly.
Yeah, harem of women.
Exactly. It's so juvenile, man. Everything is so juvenile in our world. Like, even, God, the infantilization is just left and right. And I mean that. It's on the left and the right. It's everywhere. It's liberals are doing it. Conservatives are doing it. People in cities are doing it. MAGA people are doing it to some extent. There's just so much infantilization. Men wear shorts and t-shirts all the time now. People don't dress like adults anymore. I do too. Don't worry. I started wearing the collared shirts though on the podcast because of that. Because of that, I got sick of it. I mean, the whole victimization thing, victimology thing, of course, on the left is totally infantilizing. You know, they valorize the victim. They reward you if you were hurt and oppressed, and oh my God, I need help. Of course, but and then these fantasies, you know, the right-wing reactions, like Andrew Tate's reactions to that stuff, is also juvenile. I mean, look. Like the podcasters who have gaming chairs in their studios, like Tim Pool. Well, the video game thing. I mean, I've talked about this a lot. I'm sorry, I don't like it. And I just think it's a lot of time spent doing what children do. And I'm not saying it's not fun. I've enjoyed video games, but the amount of time people put into it, just, I just find it to be really stunted developmentally and emotionally. And it's not a world I want to live in. I don't want to live in a world in which all the men are playing video games instead of fucking, instead of talking, instead of going on dates, instead of doing the things. I mean, romantic things, sharing their feelings with a woman, you know, getting solace from a woman, which is what a lot of men do. A lot of men, instead of a therapist, they have a wife, and that's a good thing, I think. In general, I mean, it's not always good for the woman, but you know, in general, that's a great thing. That's why companionship with a woman is so important for men, and I recommend it strongly. So if you want that, if you think you would benefit from that, there's things you can do in it. It's about watching women, observing women, and figuring out what they really want. And that requires observing and listening and asking. I can tell you one thing, you know, they don't like man buns. They don't like ponytails on men. They don't like nail polish. They don't like eyeliner. They don't like anything that looks trans at all.
No, they don't like the trends, the bohemian gender bending trends.
Yeah. They also don't like video. They don't like video games. They don't like talking about politics incessantly. I'm generalizing, but this is generally quite true. They don't like a lot of that stuff. And so they don't like talking about sports incessantly, the things that men generally do. So you got to like calm that stuff down when you're with women. I can't believe I'm giving dating advice here.
No, that's good advice. That stuff's good advice.
I mean, they're not interested in it. Like,
Yeah.
I've never dated a woman who's political because I can't stand it. I don't like hanging out with political people in my personal life. And so I just shut that down when I'm with them. And it's fine. It's like, because I talk about politics all damn day. When I'm with a woman, that's when I don't want to talk about that stuff. That stuff is upsetting. It's like we were talking earlier. It's like, it's upsetting. It makes me angry, makes me feel bad. So I'd rather talk about other things, like life.
Yeah.
Like the details of life. And again, most women, I think, are more interested in that stuff, the texture of everyday life, rather than these abstract concepts and theories and who plays third base for the Phillies and who's the prime minister of Finland and all that stuff. I mean, abstractions tend to be less interesting to women who are much more interested in flesh and blood issues and real people in their actual lives and what their lives are actually like. We talk about people we don't even know all the time. That's most of what we talk about in politics, right? Mostly we're talking about people, which means it's multiple levels of abstraction above what's right in front of us, above the people right in front of us. Political people don't give a fuck about people right in front of them, but they care so much about the people in Bangladesh or the people in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So much, but they care very little about those right in front of them. And again, that's what I get from hanging out with women. I get reminded that I live in a place with real people in it, and these people matter, and they have feelings, and they have emotions, and they have experiences, and they have histories, and that's what's interesting.
Dude,
focus on that.
Yeah, since listening to your podcast a lot more and getting a vibe of what makes you tick, I've realized it's a lot more productive to just ask questions and just actually be an active listener, no matter man or woman, whoever you're talking to, on any issue, because they will tell you, just let them get it off their chest. And once they feel heard, then there's no fighting to be had. They already feel heard. That's the first concern that they have as a person. And then in that process, if you actually pay attention to them, they'll tell you what it is they care about. And then you can start building a bridge from there. Like it's not hard.
Be curious, but be genuinely curious. Don't ask questions just because you're supposed to.
Yeah.
I have heard of many, many first dates. This is incredible, but it's true. This is common, by the way, for a man to go on a first date with a woman and never once ask her anything about herself. He just talks and talks and talks about himself. And the first date is over and she knows nothing about him. Because many men think they have to perform and show off and demonstrate how awesome they are. So they spend the time doing all that when the woman really wants to be talking about herself, at least somewhat. So again, you've got to cultivate curiosity in the people you're with. And that is the ticket to love, guys.
And if you're secure in what you already believe, then you don't have to lecture anybody else on what it is that you believe. Like, then
of course
you're already firm and established as who you are. So great, you have an opportunity to learn something new from somebody else.
They also don't give a shit about your position on the war in Ukraine. They don't. They want to know if you can talk to them.
Yeah.
and listen to them.
Yeah.
Which is a reasonable thing to want, by the way. It's kind of what I want too. I don't care at all what someone's politics are at all when I'm deciding whether to be with them. Intimately, I want to know if they can relate to me. Me.
You want them to accidentally discover that you're a Nazi 6 months into the relationship.
When it's too late for them.
Yeah, when it's too late for them. Yeah.
When I've been like, so honey, tell me more about your life. Oh, that's so fascinating. Oh, by the way, I'm a Nazi.
Yeah.
Then they can't leave. They're hooked in by that point. Dude, we got to wrap. We got to go.
We do.
Unregistered Live starts in 1 minute. If you would like to hang out with us and talk about all this and much more, go to patreon.com/unregistered, become a member at any level, and we'll see you there.
Yep. See you over there. I'm going to play us out from a clip from the original Andrew Tate, the guy to do it first, the guy to do it the best. Here we go.